Question 140. Which solution would you utilize to connect to Azure Cosmos DB using the virtual network's private IP address? And the options are 1. Private endpoint, 2. Public endpoint, 3. VPN gateway, 4. Service endpoint. And the correct answer is option 1. Private endpoint. Explanation. Option 1 is the correct answer. A private endpoint is a network interface that uses a private IP address in Azure Virtual Network. This network interface allows users to privately and securely connect to services powered by Azure Private Link. Azure services that use private endpoints are: number 1. Azure Storage, 2. Azure Cosmos DB, 3. Azure SQL Database, 4. Services using the private link service. Option 2 is incorrect. Azure services such as Azure Storage, SQL Database, Cosmos DB, etc. usually connect with URLs called public endpoints. This is a connection method through the internet using a public IP address. Option 3 is incorrect. A VPN gateway is a gateway that sends encrypted traffic over the public internet between Azure virtual networks and on-premises locations. Option 4 is incorrect. Service endpoints enable secure direct connectivity to Azure services via optimized routes over Azure's backbone network. By using service endpoints, you can restrict access to critical Azure service resources to your virtual network only. This is incorrect because it uses the service's public IP address to route the service endpoint. Next question. Select yes if the following statement is true. Otherwise, select no. You can disable public access to Azure Cosmos DB by using a public endpoint. Is it yes or no? And the correct answer is it's no. Explanation. The correct answer is no. A public endpoint is an endpoint that enables access to your service over the internet. Azure services such as Azure Storage, SQL Database, and Cosmos DB connect to external services through URLs called public endpoints. This is a connection method through the internet using a public IP address. You can connect to the service through a network interface with a private IP address in your virtual network. Public endpoints connect via the internet with a public IP address, so there is a risk that anyone can connect if the security settings are not set correctly. Next question. Select yes if the following statement is true. Otherwise, select no. Azure Resource Manager templates can be used to define infrastructure through code. Is it yes or no? And the correct answer is it's yes. Explanation. Yes is the correct answer. Azure Resource Manager templates define infrastructure configurations, such as virtual machines, in code so anyone can deploy the same configurations over and over again. ARM templates are JavaScript object narration files that allow you to define your project's infrastructure and configuration. Next question. Select yes if the following statement is true. Otherwise, select no. A separate resource manager template is required for each resource. Is it yes or no? And the correct answer is it's no. Explanation. No is the correct answer. Azure Resource Manager templates define infrastructure configurations such as virtual machines in code so anyone can deploy the same configurations over and over again. A template can set the configuration for the overall infrastructure that you want to achieve. You do not need to create a new template on a resource by resource basis. A single template can contain multiple resources, so you don't need a separate template for each resource you deploy. Next question. You are planning to migrate your on-premises infrastructure to Azure. It is necessary to migrate to the cloud without changing the existing system configuration in the on-premises environment. Which cloud service model is best for this? And the options are 1. Infrastructure as a service, 2. Software as a service, 3. Platform as a service, 4. Desktop as a service. And the correct answer is option 1. Infrastructure as a service. Explanation. Option 1 is the correct answer. Infrastructure as a service is a cloud service model that allows you to use the necessary hardware over the network when using servers, etc. For example, if you want to migrate a physical server, you can use an Azure virtual machine. Select the OS you want to use and start with the same settings as the physical server. With infrastructure as a service, you can customize the software you use, So you can use it when you want to migrate existing on-premises system to the cloud without needing to change it. Next question. Select yes if the following statement is true. Otherwise, select no. The maximum number of entities and messages per storage account is unlimited. Is it yes or no? And the correct answer is it's yes. Explanation. The correct answer is yes. The maximum number of blob containers, blobs, file shares, tables, queues, entities, and messages per storage account is unlimited. Next question. Select yes if the following statement is true. Otherwise, select no. There is a maximum number of blob containers, blobs, and file shares per storage account. Is it yes or no? And the correct answer is it's no. Explanation. The correct answer is no. Maximum number of blob containers, blobs, file shares, tables, queues, entities, and messages per storage account is unlimited. Next question. You are developing a patch that generates a report on the virtual machine's system activity. This patch will be implemented once a week. Which solution will minimize the cost of implementation and operation? And the options are 1. Azure Functions, 2. Virtual Machine, 3. Azure App Service, 4. Azure Logic Apps. And the correct answer is option 1. Azure Functions. Explanation. Option 1 is the correct answer. Azure Functions is a serverless service for building applications that perform simple processing. With serverless computing, the cloud provider does all the provisioning and management of the infrastructure, and you only develop and run the code you want to run. Therefore, users can minimize development and operating cost. Therefore, it is best to use Azure Functions for short, irregular patching that runs once a week. Next question. What is the solution for securely connecting directly to Azure services through optimized routes over Azure's backbone network? And the options are 1. Service Endpoint, 2. Public Endpoint, 3. VPN Gateway, 4. Private Endpoint. And the correct answer is option 1. Service Endpoint. Explanation. Option 1 is the correct answer. Service endpoints enable secure and direct connectivity from specific resources to other Azure resources over optimized routes over Azure's backbone network. By using service endpoints, you can restrict access to critical Azure service resources to your virtual network only. Option 2 is incorrect. Azure services such as Azure Storage, SQL Database, and Cosmos DB are typically connected via URLs called public endpoints. This is a connection method through the internet using a public IP address. Option 3 is incorrect. A VPN gateway is a gateway that sends encrypted traffic over the public internet between Azure virtual networks and on-premises locations. Option 4 is incorrect. A private endpoint is a network interface that uses the private IP address of your virtual network. This network interface allows users to privately and securely connect to services powered by Azure Private Link. Next question. Which tool can estimate the future cost of various Azure services based on projected uses? And the options are 1. Azure Pricing Calculator, 2. Microsoft Trust Center, 3. Azure Cost Management, 4. Azure TCO Calculator. And the correct answer is option 1. Azure Pricing Calculator. Explanation. Option 1 is the correct answer. The Azure Pricing Calculator allows you to calculate the future cost of using an individual Azure service based on your projected uses of that service. Option 2 is incorrect. The Microsoft Trust Center provides information on Microsoft security, privacy, and compliance. Option 3 is incorrect. Azure Cost Management can report on cost and uses and categorize cost but cannot estimate future cost. Option 4 is incorrect. The Azure TCO Calculator is a tool that allows you to estimate the cost of migrating to Azure compared to workloads such as on-premises environments. You should use the Azure Pricing Calculator for future estimates of individual Azure services. Next question. Which Azure Active Directory function is used when a user logs in using a smartphone, etc.? And the options are 1. Azure Information Protection AIP, 2. Multi-password, 3. Azure Security Center. 4. Multi-factor authentication MFA. And the correct answer is option 4. Multi-factor authentication. Explanation. Option 4 is the correct answer. Multi-factor authentication is a function that combines multiple factors for authentication when verifying the identity of cloud services, such as Azure and web applications. Authentication using a device such as a smartphone can be used as an MFA authentication method. Azure AD multi-factor authentication works by requiring two or more of the following authentication methods. Number 1. Something you know, usually a password. Number 2. Something that the user has, such as a trusted device that cannot be easily duplicated, such as a mobile phone or hardware key. Number 3. The user themselves, biometrics such as fingerprint scanning or facial recognition. Option 1 is incorrect. Azure Information Protection is a document and email discovery, classification and protection service. Option 2 is incorrect. Multi-password functionality does not exist in Active Directory. Option 3 is incorrect. Azure Security Center is a subscription-based service for security diagnosis, protection and threat detection. Next question. Which service can automatically adjust the protection of user-specific Azure resources within a virtual network for DDoS attack protection? And the options are 1. Azure DDoS Protection Advanced. 2. Azure DDoS Protection Basic. 3. Azure Advanced Threat Protection. 4. Azure DDoS Protection Standard. And the correct answer is option 4. Azure DDoS Protection Standard. Explanation. Option 4 is the correct answer. Azure DDoS Protection is a feature that protects your applications and resources with profiles that automatically adjust to the amount of traffic you need. Defend against even the most sophisticated DDoS attacks with dedicated monitoring, logs, telemetry, and alerts. Azure DDoS Protection Standard is a service that provides DDoS mitigation to protect against DDoS attacks. It provides more support over Azure DDoS Protection Basic. It automatically throttles traffic to protect user-specific Azure resources within virtual networks. Option 1 is incorrect. There is no service called Azure DDoS Protection Advanced. Option 2 is incorrect. Azure DDoS Protection Basic is a free service enabled by default that provides basic DDoS attacks mitigation, but is not sufficient for all questions requirement. Option 3 is incorrect. Azure ATP is a service that detects and analyzes unauthorized activities and malicious attacks on user credentials, PCs, resources, etc. within an organization. It is not a service specialized for DDoS attacks. Next question. You use Azure virtual machines to host long-lived applications. Choose the best way to reduce the cost of this Azure virtual machine. And the options are 1. Apply Azure Reservations to all virtual servers. 2. Change all virtual servers to Azure Spot VM instances. 3. Change all virtual servers to Azure Dedicated Host. 4. Restrict the uses of expensive virtual machine types using Azure policies. And the correct answer is option 1. Apply Azure Reservations to all virtual servers. Explanation. Option 1 is the correct answer. You can purchase resources at a lower price than regular pay-as-you-go pricing by pre-reserving resources for use with Azure Reservations. You can pay for the reserved resources upfront or monthly. With Azure Reservations, you can save significantly up to 72% compared to pay-as-you-go pricing by reserving Windows and Linux virtual machines VMs for 1 or 3 years. Combine the cost savings from Azure RI with the added value of the Azure Hybrid benefit and you can save up to 80%. In this scenario, you have a long-term application requirement and you can save on virtual machine prices by reserving for 3 years with reserved VMs. Option 2 is incorrect. You can save money by using spot VMs, but spot VMs are temporary virtual machines that can be interrupted. Therefore, changing a general application virtual server to a spot VM is inappropriate. Option 3 is incorrect. Azure Dedicated Hosting is an Azure virtual machine uses method that avoids sharing a physical server with other Azure users. It is commonly used to most compliance requirements and doesn't reduce cost. Option 4 is incorrect. If you limit the virtual machine types and lower the virtual machine specs, it is not optimal as it can affect the quality of your application. Next question. What are the benefits of having multiple Azure subscriptions? And the options are: 1. Use multiple subscriptions when you want to separate resources for each project while consolidating resource payments. 2. Split subscriptions when you want to separate networks. 3. Use multiple subscriptions if you want to separate payments for different projects while consolidating resource management. 4. Separate free and paid subscriptions when using the free tier. And the correct answer is option 1. Use multiple subscriptions when you want to separate resources for each project while consolidating resource payments. Explanation. Option 1 is the correct answer. A subscription is an administrative boundary that sets operational permissions to Azure resources. Subscriptions hold payment and contract information and are also used for payment management. So split subscriptions when you want to split resources by project. You can create multiple subscriptions in one Azure account. If you have multiple subscriptions, you can also split your payment by subscription. You can also consolidate payments with management groups and Azure accounts. Option 2 is incorrect. Use Azure Virtual Networks for network isolation. Option 3 is incorrect. Splitting subscriptions does not consolidate resource management of each project individually. Option 4 is incorrect. Splitting your subscription does not increase your free tier. Thank you for watching this video. Buy our AZ 900 premium questions with 50% off. Check link in the description.